Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited for today's video. I had my patrons vote over on my Patreon to decide what my next video is going to be, and I'm glad that they decided to go with another book haul. Thank you for watching my other book haul if you saw that. If you didn't, I'm going to put a card so you can check that out. It was more of a thriller horror theme, and the theme for this book haul is going to be books written by Black authors. So of course, right now is such a critical time to read books by Black authors, get yourself educated, to support them financially and emotionally, and, you know, supporting their work, but also helping them get to the top of those bestseller lists, because, I mean, that's what it's all about. We need them to be seen, we need them to be heard. So, I got myself some books. I went to my local bookstore and I wanted to make sure that I was shopping locally as well. Of course, never buy your books from Amazon. And when I went to order books, it was pretty much impossible for me to find the books that I was specifically looking for. Well, the books that I decided to pick were horror and thriller books written by Black authors. When I went to purchase books off of my local bookstore's website, about 99% of the books that I wanted to get were not in stock. And I don't know if it's because, you know, it's a local bookstore, so it's smaller and they just didn't have it in stock because of them selling out, or if they didn't stock in the first place. I'm hoping that it was because a lot of people were buying books by Black authors at the same time. Sorry if there's a glare on my glasses. I'm sitting right in front of a window. I have a total of 7 books here. Only 2 were recently ordered. The other 5 books are books that I've recently got, but at a separate date, and they're also books that I have had on my shelf since college days. I decided, since I only was able to get 2 books from this recent purchase, that I would also show you some of my favorites. So there's some classics, there's some good stuff, and I'm just gonna get right into it. Okay, starting with the first section, which is the books that I recently purchased. These are the 2 that I got. I'll start with this one, which I'm sure a lot of people know about. Octavia Butler. I mean, who doesn't know who Octavia Butler is? I've never purchased one of her books because I don't know. Usually when I look up horror books or thriller books, I'm usually looking up reviews that are like long lists, curated lists by people online who, you know, usually expertise in that genre. And for some reason, I'd never seen Octavia Butler on any of those lists, ever. Which is fascinating to me, because people that I do know who have read Octavia Butler say that she's absolutely fantastic, and I can't argue. She is a name that everybody knows, you know, she's a classic. I never noticed it before, which, I mean, that's a little bit of negligence on my part, but it's just, that's interesting. It's an interesting thing to discover. This was the only book that I can find by her at the bookstore, and I found that also fascinating because she has a lot of books, and I was actually trying to get her series, Parable of Thee, and then I think there's another one, Fledgling. And the only thing I know about this book is that it's a vampire book, and I don't know if you know this, but I hate vampire stories. Sorry, not sorry, I'm just not into it, but I still got it because someone on my Instagram told me that they also aren't into vampire stories, but they love this book, and they said it was a very unique take on a vampire story. So I'm really interested into seeing how that plays out, and I think it will be my current read, and hopefully I'll probably start this today. Very, very excited. If you have any opinions, thoughts about this book, Fledgling by Octavia Butler, let me know in the comments. I know it's very popular, so I'm sure there are thoughts out there. Second book is probably not well known. When I was doing my research to find horror and thriller books by Black authors, I went through dozens of lists all over the internet, and I found this one pop up a couple of times. And it is called The Devil in Silver by LaValle. And it came up a couple of times. So when I see that a book is showing up multiple times on lists that say really great horror/thriller books by Black authors, it caught my eye, and it was in stock, so that was a big help. And I don't know much of what it's about, but look at this cover. Isn't that so creepy? let's see really quickly. Oh, another reason why, I just saw it in the blurb. Another reason why I was really interested in this one is because, I'll just read it to you. Pepper is the surprised inmate of a mental institution in Queens, New York. I'm from Queens, New York, so I think the author is actually from Queens, New York, which is really, really cool. I don't often find books or any sort of literature talking about Queens. If you don't know, Queens is a borough in New York City. So this was another thing that caught my eye, and I'm very, very excited about that as well. Actually, now I can't tell which one I want to read first. Let me know which one I should read first. Should I read the lesser known one from my hometown, or should I read good old Octavia Butler? Let me know. Okay, moving on. Those were the grand total of 2 books that I got in my book haul. Wow, so amazing. But I also recently got this book, I would say I got this late last year, late 2019, and it's by an author who I highly recommend. She is a classic, she is a legend, she is amazing. It is Toni Morrison, and I got Tar Baby. So I've never read Tar Baby, but I've read a lot of books by Toni Morrison. I actually took a course in college, and I love to tell people this because I just find it so cool that my college provided a course on Toni Morrison and not someone like Shakespeare, although they did provide that and I took that too. But they had a Toni Morrison course, and I took that in my senior year of college, and all we did was read Toni Morrison and talk about her work. So this was one that we did not read during that semester, and the title is just so fascinating to me. I just love how it sounds, and it interests me so much, and anything by Toni Morrison I am willing to read. So this was one that I picked up around the time where she passed away, and I felt, you know, I should probably have more Toni Morrison on my bookshelves. I actually don't have the books that I had from college on my own bookshelves, which, I mean, why don't I? So I plan, when I get opportunity to buy more Toni Morrison books just to have it on my shelf, but this is one that I'm very excited about reading. Yeah, if you've read Toni Morrison, let me know which of her books are your favorite. Mine are Beloved and Sula and The Bluest Eye. Moving on, these next 2 I have read, and I read them in college, and I love them so much, and I can tell you, I can prove to you how much I like them, because look at this. I bookmarked the heck out of these books when I was in college. These 2 books, they really resonated with me, and I was always so appreciative of reading books like this in college as a requirement. This book is one of my very, very favorite books ever. And a lot of people know about this book. Their Eyes Were Watching God, and they don't read it. They know about it, but they've never read it. And I sort of understand why. It's a classic, first of all. You know, with classics, you're like, oh yeah, it's a classic. I mean to get to that book, and you never do. So I can understand that, and I can also understand that disclaimer if you ever decide to pick this book up, which I think it's an essential book. You should read it, or at least try to read it in your lifetime. As a disclaimer, the language is hard. I'm pretty sure that the person, the narrator or the main character in this novel is Caribbean, and so they speak in broken English. That's how they speak in the Caribbeans, in the West Indies. So I can understand, and I remember being in college among a lot of students who did not have a Caribbean or West Indian background, or, you know, was exposed to that kind of dialect. They had a lot of trouble reading this, but it's tricky to get through, but once you learn the ebb and flow of the dialect, you really, really find something amazing about this book. It's so raw, it's very exposing, it's very real, and I think a lot of people don't like to read books by Black authors that are very close to home because they can't relate, or it's a little bit too graphic for them, and I think that is part of the discomfort that you need to get past. If you want to be part of the movement, you have to be educated on it, and getting through that discomfort is very, very critical. I think it's very important that you check this one out. It is very near and dear to my heart, and clearly, it's clear with all my highlights that if you want to discuss this, if you want to talk about this book, reach out to me. I would love to talk about this book. Okay, one more book from my college days. This book, Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. I also consider this book a classic. It's from the 50s, I believe, and the author is Nigerian. And what I like about this book is that it's so descriptive of the environment, of the culture and the heritage, that it's so rich, and it makes you so fascinated to learn more about the culture. And it really is a dissection of culture and how society can really affect a person. Basically, it's about this guy. He goes through some stuff. I'm not going to tell you what stuff, but he goes through some stuff, and it's a collection of heritage and culture and, you know, societal norms and how it affects this person. It's so good. All of these other books are female driven. So this one was very, very interesting to tune in to what it's like to be a Nigerian man during the time period that it discusses, and it's just really good. I think it's really educational and a fictional story yet again. I like books that are fictional but tell a story that interweaves real life. If you're hearing weird noises, that's my rabbit doing some digging, so sorry about that. I will not be showing any nonfiction in this, but fiction that is able to interpret or is able to incorporate real life culture and situations is just very special to me. Okay, on to the last section of this haul, and it's not really a haul, but whatever. And this section is pretty unique, and this is something that's really a weird fun fact about me. I really love folk tales, and so for a long period of time, starting from high school into college, I would go to different bookstores and just look for folk tale books. And I have a collection of my own, and I decided that I would like to show a couple of those in this haul because it's applicable. And it's these two giant, beautiful books, and I believe they're from the Pantheon. So I believe they're like a distribution, or they specialize in doing folktale anthologies. And this one is African folktales, and this one is American Indian myths and legends. So right now we're focusing on Black and Indigenous people of color, and these spot on. So the collection isn't collected by Black or Indigenous people, but it's collected by people who are anthropologists, and they study the culture for a very long time. And they didn't write anything in these books. They basically did their research for years, decades, and found original stories by original peoples of the culture. And I find it absolutely fascinating. I love them so much. They're such simple and short reads, but it talks a lot about culture and history. And I think a lot of us don't know about culture and history of certain places, and I think it's important. And again, I'm heavily influenced by fiction that dives into the non-fiction or the real world, and these are direct, literally direct stories of that. I feel a great connection when I read folk tales to original peoples, and I highly recommend. I think of the two, American Indian, this one is really thick, and I think it actually goes through 80 different tribal groups of the Americas. And then this one, African, the way that they section these off is actually topics. I actually find these far more informative than textbooks, because we all know some textbooks aren't telling us the truth. So you can see certain stories that were really important to the people, the original peoples of the land. The American Indian, it also has themes, but what's cool about the American Indian one is that it will show you the exact tribe of where the story originated from, which I think is really, really cool. I think they're fun stories to read. That's that. We had our 3 sections. We had our little tiny haul. We had our little blast from the past, my college days books, and some folk tales. I hope something here was interesting, fascinating. I'll link everything in the description so that you can find a copy of your own. I highly suggest shopping locally at your local bookstore first, and I really hope this inspires you to get some books by Black authors. There is so much talent that we haven't been highlighting for a really long time. This is a great opportunity to actively invest your time and money and thought into really, really important topics and really, really talented people. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to contribute and vote to future videos, you can head over you can head over to my Patreon. I will link that below. I regularly post polls so that you can influence what I record next. And with that and some digging noises in the background, I'll see you in the next one.